Hello everyone. I wanted to do a video today about a television program that I stumbled across over the long weekend, and it was about stalking. And I wanted to just talk about this for a minute because I have my own personal experience with it, and I think I can offer maybe a little advice if anyone out there is struggling. It is a very dangerous situation, and the program I watched just brought it all back to me, even though it's been over 20 years ago that this happened to me. The police officers that were involved in my case at the time told me that it never really ends, that it can restart or he could find me again at any time, which I try not to think about. And as far as I know, he hasn't. So I just wanted to start off the video though by telling you that there are different kinds of stalkers, and I have some notes here. The first one is the rejected stalker, and that's pretty self-explanatory. It's the one that I was involved in. I was married to this guy for a very short time, and when I left and ended it, that's when things just went horribly wrong. It's usually, well, it's always someone that you have been involved with either deeply or maybe not so deeply, but you know them. The second one is called the resentful stalker. And that kind of a stalker, they resent you because they feel that you have caused them some kind of humiliation, or they feel like you mistreated them in some way, and it angers them to a point that they want to get back at you. And so they use stalking as their weapon. The intimacy-seeking stalker arises from them being lonely or not having access to a really close friend, and they see in you some potential that you could be that person for them. Now, usually they will stalk strangers and try to get close to a stranger, get a relationship going, be it friendship, love, whatever. But that's what they're seeking. So sometimes they want a relationship, but not always. They just want like a friend because they're just that lonely, which is kind of sad, but ruining someone else's life is not worth that. An incompetent suitor is described as lonely or lustful. They target acquaintances or strangers, not to establish a loving relationship. They want a date or a short-term sexual relationship, and these people usually stalk for just a short amount of time. These are the ones that people think, when it happens to you, I was told, well, it won't last long. It's usually only a 3-month stint, and mine was 2.5 years. So that doesn't hold true unless they are, this type of a stalker that just wants to keep moving on and on. And then there's a predatory stalker. This is a deviant sexual interest in their victim, and it's usually a stranger that they will set their sights on, and perhaps even try to set up through stalking and scaring her as a preference to, sexual assault or an attack, or even, worse, killing her. And then I also found out that most are men, but some are women. And women and men, they use the same approach when they stalk. So it said that 12 to 16% of women and 4 to 7% of men will be stalked at some time in their life. The intent is to harass, terrorize, and intimidate. And they're very, very good at that. I'm not even going to get into the cyber end of it because that is just a whole nother rabbit hole. So this is just real life stuff, not in the internet world, because that just goes way deep. Former relationships are the most common that you will see, followed by acquaintances and then strangers. So let's say, not necessarily you were married to them, but let's say that you had someone that you dated for a few months and you broke up and you went on your way and you thought they had gone on their way as well, and they really didn't. They weren't over it, and they're going to make you pay. Also, women can stalk women. I'm sure men stalk men. It just wasn't really talked about. But another incident that I had in my life was I had in my job a girl who was living with her girlfriend, and her girlfriend became fixated on me for whatever reason and wanted me to leave my husband and all this garbage, and she was calling all the time, and I finally squashed that, but that wasn't anything compared to my ex-husband. So former relationships are the most common people that will stalk you, and women are more afraid of being stalked by a stranger, because it seems like, you know, if you think about a stranger stalking you, you don't know who it is. You don't know if they're looking around the corner. You don't know what they have on you, and it's just terrifying to think about it. But when you think about being stalked by somebody you know, it seems more tangible, like you could get your hands on it, and, you know, that it would be more manageable for you because you know them. But that's not true. Those are usually the most terrifying. So really, it said at the end of the article that I was reading, and this gave me chills, the greater danger by far is the devil you know. So it kind of makes you never want to get involved with anyone else. But let me just go back quickly and tell you a little bit about my stalking story and how I am lucky to be here. So I had been engaged to this guy way back, and then we went our separate ways. We never married, and he married someone and I married someone, and years later, like 20 years later, see, it never ends, he was divorced and was looking for me, and he called where he knew I had worked for years and years, and I just happened to be there. We reconnected, dated for a while. He had just come off of a really bad relationship, and I knew that he had a lot of sorrow and felt rejected by her and belittled by her. But I thought, you know, I mean, I was seeing him the way I knew him from 20 years before. And so I thought, well, you know, he'll be fine. He'll get over it. We all always get over it. And so we went along, and he did have a drinking problem, but he had quit drinking. And fast forward, I don't know, 12 months, we were already married, and I caught him drinking. And when he drank, it was terrible. He would be up all night. He would be talking to spirits. He would turn the stereo on full blast, and I would get complaints from the apartments we lived in. It was just stress after stress after stress. Then he started getting physical with me as well. And so we moved into another place. And again, I thought, well, maybe he'll straighten up when we move into this new place. And it just got worse. And there were fights, there were screaming matches. He would put his fists through the walls. He, one night, choked me, got me down on the bed, and was choking me in anger over something that I said. And that was it. I was done. And you may ask, why weren't you done before that? And when you are an abused woman, you can look all that up, or I can talk about it in another video. It's just not that easy. And I was terrified about making this decision because I knew that when I left and ended it with him, that it was only going to accelerate. And it was already bad enough. So we went from breaking up and me moving in with my parents. And my parents at the time were in their 70s, so they really weren't, equipped to deal with something like this and worry about me, but I didn't have anywhere else to go. I wasn't on my feet yet. And so I was staying with them, and in one night we heard noises out front, and the next morning when I went out to my car to go to work, there were gunshots through the windshield and through the back window, and wires and things pulled out from underneath the car, and all my tires slashed. The next week or the next month, my dad looked out the back window just as a matter of course in the night, and he noticed that his tires were all flat and the car was sitting on the ground. And so, we called the police, and I tried to tell them, and they would listen to my story, but it was like, he hasn't really hurt you, and you can't prove that he shot up your car, and you can't prove he slashed your dad's tires. And my dad sat with a little handgun that he had from World War II at the dining room table at night, just in fear that this person would break in and try to kill us. It was heartbreaking. I've never cried so much in my life. Out of fear, out of hurting my parents, out of the decisions that I had made, I felt completely worthless. From there, if I did go out to see a girlfriend for dinner or something, I would come back to my parking spot, and in the shadows, in the night, it was just like out of a Lifetime movie or something. Out of the shadows, I would see something move, and he would just come out. He would just stand in the road and just stare at me. There were black roses left on my car. He got a hold of a piece of paper that I had from work, because we had all of us had exchanged previously phone numbers and names of everybody in the office. It was kind of a small office. Maybe there was 15 or 20 of us. And we did that because sometimes, we get a snowstorm here and we need to call each other, and, so we just would have it as a precautionary measure. He got a hold of that, and I didn't know he had it until the doctors that I worked for started coming to me and telling me that they had gotten phone calls from him in the night that he was threatening them and their families. He also threatened my children and my ex-husband, and that we were all going to die. He left messages on a girl's answering machine. It was an answering machine back then. And there were 3 messages, and they were all very maniacal and very threatening to all of us. My job finally had to bring in some off-duty police officers to stand guard and just be in the office and just kind of watch things and watch the door. Sometimes we were there till 9 or 10 o'clock working, and that was the times that they were really afraid of. I figured that I would be fired from that job because of all the drama that I unintentionally brought, but thankfully I was able to hang on to my job. He did come by the office a couple of times, and he would just stand and stare. And the feeling that you would get that I would get when I would see him was just, he intimidated me so bad, because he knew that I didn't want him to hurt anyone. I mean, if you're gonna hurt somebody, then hurt me. Here was my attitude in towards the end. And I told one of the police officers, and he said, oh, no, no, no. You need to go to counseling. Because I told the police officer, here's what I want. If he's gonna hurt someone, have him hurt me, have him do it now, and get it over with. I see the error of that thinking now, because just because he would have hurt me or killed me doesn't mean that he would have stopped there. So yes, I did get help for, mentally. And this whole time I'm bringing charges. I'm doing the restraining order, which is a laugh. And I live in a big city, so I had to go all the way downtown, park in a parking garage, talk to 18 people before I got the right person to help me. And they had a restraining order, and big deal, it did nothing. And when I would see him and he was breaking the restraining order and I called the police, they'd never come. So it was worthless. So this went on, like I said, for a good 2 years, and a couple of times I was able to have him put in jail for different things. He screwed up, made mistakes, and I was able to prove that, this, that, and the other, and that he'd get right back out. 24-hour stay, 6-week stay, he'd get right back out. So finally we went to court for all of these charges. And it's odd that I cannot remember why they arrested him this last time, but they kept him. And he had an attorney, and his mother was in the courtroom at the time. And this was like Perry Mason. I mean, I laughed, but it was really not funny. I was on the witness stand, and we wanted to present the tapes that he had left on that girl's answering machine. She had them transcribed, and she had the tapes that she gave me, and we had to get them cleared through the judge to be able to listen to them in the courtroom. And I thought, if they don't play these tapes, I'm doomed. I mean, he's gonna get out, and that's it. The judge thankfully let the tapes be played, and the whole courtroom heard everything he said. And his attorney went back to his mother, who was sitting there, and asked her, can you testify that that is not his voice? Because I saw her shake her head like this a couple of times. I know that's what he was asking. I won my case, and he went to jail for 6 months. During that 6 months, I had peace. There was nothing. There were no phone calls. I didn't open my drapes in the morning and see him standing outside in the yard. I mean, it was great. And by the time he got out, I had established a new relationship with a wonderful man that I've been with for 22 years. And we had moved on. So yeah, he could find me. All you got to do is Google my name or my kids' names. My kids are grown now. He still knows their names. He could find them and try to call them and stuff, but he hasn't. So maybe I'm lucky. Maybe I got lucky with that. But anyway, that's my stalking story, and it's not funny. And you have to know that when you make the move to leave, that is the most dangerous time. So just be prepared. But there are shelters and laws in place now that there weren't when I was going through it, and people that can help you, and you can do it. You can get out of that bad situation. Please don't stay and let them beat you. Please don't stay in a relationship like that just because you're afraid that they're going to turn to stalking and make you miserable, because people can help you, and it's going to be okay in the end. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.